You know, this is unbelievable. There's been this massive Bitcoin rally despite this bleak economic future, or perhaps it's because of the bleak economic future. And perhaps it's because of what people fear may be coming in the way of taxation, in the way of regulation, in the way of you name it with the new economic team. The market's still near 30K, and that's in part because I think the world is all hoping for another giant stimulus bill. I mean, you saw what they were talking about today. And, even the Republicans are coming around on this one because they do not want to be labeled effectively as the Grinches that stole Christmas. So get ready for that. We're going to spend a whole bunch more money we don't have. And I think as I look at what's going on in the Bitcoin market right now, and by the way, that's just fascinating. I encourage you all to look at Bitcoin because I was one of the first to report on it when it really started to come on the scene back when I was at Bloomberg Television. And it's an incredibly interesting product, but even more so, to me that's interesting is this technology behind it and how it could really be earth-shattering in terms of changing how we transact with each other. Anyway, went to an all-time high, $19,920.53. That's the level on Bitcoin, right around 20,000 bucks. Pretty amazing, right? And yet it makes sense, I think, given the kind of economic climate we're in, what we may see in the way of taxation. I think a lot of people are trying to hide, some of their money. And Bitcoin isn't perfect, but these cryptocurrencies are a way to kind of circumvent a few things, apparently. So you've got this government, right, that's spent upwards of $3 trillion. That's the U.S. government. That's us. $3 trillion trying to combat coronavirus. And, they want to spend at least $3 trillion more. That's what Joe Biden has talked about in the coming months. You throw in a couple more trillion in terms of the Fed and its money printing. And what you're talking about is a whole lot of money. I mean, just to put it in perspective, when Barack Obama did his stimulus to nowhere, it really did nothing to help our economy. Do you know that we spent $800 million on that? $800 million, and that was a big deal then. Well, we just got through with $3 trillion, basically, and we're looking at $3 trillion more. You are talking about a lot of money. So when you look at this new economic team that's coming into the White House, allegedly in another couple months, they're going to be big spenders with your money and my money. And to me, that has the makings of an economic disaster. Biden wants to go right back to those good old Obama days. Yeah, those days of stagnation when our economy couldn't grow. You're talking about, what, less than 2% annualized growth? Lovely. And unemployment levels that were nothing like what we have seen in most recent years. And lots of regulation and threats of more taxes and more regulations. I guess they just somehow think, if we just keep handing money out, everything will be better. I get it. The market, they're very reactionary in terms of the here and now, and they want people to have more money in their pockets to spend. But ultimately, that Keynesian philosophy, it doesn't work for me. It really doesn't. And this incoming economic team, they're all Keynesians. So you've got the Obama 3.0 ordeal. You've got Janet Yellen as Treasury Secretary. I actually like Yellen. I liked her as a Fed chief. She was far too dovish for me. I don't believe in printing money like that, but she does. So be wary of that. You've got a National Economic Council that's going to be led by Brian Deese, who helped design the 2009 auto bailout. So they like bailouts, and he's been working at BlackRock for in recent years, I should say, where he has been heading the sustainable investing global group. So you can assume that we're probably going to see a lot of climate issues as part of economic policies overall, right? But that's what you get with Joe Biden. That's to be expected. You also have Neera Tanden, who's very politically motivated. She's going to have a harder time with Republicans because, well, let's just say they don't like her very much. She is intended to be the White House budget director. I believe the Wall Street Journal referred to her as a ferocious partisan who's close to Hillary Clinton. So not exactly a selling point with Republicans or for any kind of cross-aisle stuff. She's a big proponent of higher taxes, really big on climate issues, progressives' dream, I guess. So I think you take away from this that we could see higher taxes, you could see more regulation. And the problem is these people view government as the way to lead economic growth. They don't believe in the individual and individual businesses. They believe it's government that creates the growth. And so there's going to be a lot of pressure for more stimulus, more spending, all thanks to what we're dealing with coronavirus. And I don't have faith in this team. I don't like their policy. I just don't. I don't think it's the right move for us right now. And I saw what they did before. You heard me say 2% annualized growth. Whoopee. No middle-class wage inflation. High unemployment levels, and that was not what I would call a recipe for success. And so you think about all these things, right? The higher taxes, more regulation, the craziness that could possibly come if we get a blue sweep with the Senate going blue as well. And it makes sense that Bitcoin is rallying. I mean, I would caution anyone on this investment just because it's super volatile. I mean, like really volatile. This is like Wild West territory. Bitcoin markets started the year, I believe, around 7K, and then they dropped down to somewhere around 5. Trading there because of coronavirus, everything plunged around that time. And then they went up and up and up to 18 in November. And here we are in December, and we're looking at nearly 20,000. So it is being fueled in part by this incoming administration and what the incoming administration is going to mean for the U.S. dollar, right? The sanctity of our U.S. dollar is really important. And while we can manage through a lower dollar, right? Because sometimes it helps us when we sell stuff overseas and the U.S. dollar is a little cheaper. It helps us to sell more stuff. But ultimately, it becomes very problematic in the long term. And so if you've got a dollar that's subject to so much inflation, it takes that many more dollars, right, to buy anything. And so your savings becomes worth less. So if you're someone who's been saving up for retirement and you finally got $100,000 in the bank and you're like, great, I can retire. Well, that $100,000, it isn't what it was yesterday. Basically, that's the problem here with the inflation thing. So the other reason you may see a little bit of activity is because, as I said, some people want to really shield their money from taxes, and that's happening all over the world, right? Not just here in the U.S., but all over the world. And you also have interest from some pretty important players in the corporate space, right? PayPal, which owns Venmo, recently announced that it would be integrating Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies into its platform. You got PayPal and Square looking to buy more Bitcoin, and so increasingly put it into its platform. So it's becoming more and more mainstream, and that will cause it to go up in value because people will trust it more, right? This is what it's going to come down to. The faith and trust. What is it effectively backed by? If it's trading in dollars, then, it gives you a sense of that too. But a lot of people are looking at this as the new gold, right? Is this sort of, technologically speaking, the new gold? We shall see. But one thing I can tell you, this environment that we're going into, it's going to be a little bit rocky. You got a lot of people there that really have a different philosophy on the economy. And frankly, I think it's been proven that it's not a philosophy that really works. The growth has to be real, which means the growth has to come from the economy itself, from the people, from businesses that we create. It can't be all top-down, Uncle Sam giving handouts. That is not the way to have sustainable success. But it's good for Bitcoin, apparently. Make sure you tune into the podcast. I'm there every day at trishintel.com. You can download the podcast there. You can also get it anywhere you get your podcasts, on Spotify, on Apple iTunes, on Amazon, on iHeartRadio. I look forward to keeping this conversation going and calling these guys out when they get a little too crazy. And I'm fearful there's going to be quite a bit of that. I'll see you tomorrow.